Welcome to the Fresh Start Show, sponsored by 911 Restoration, the Fresh Start Company.
All right, welcome in everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into something that, well, might not sound like the most thrilling topic at first glance.
Yeah, maybe not as exciting as, say, the latest gadgets or tech trends.
Exactly, but trust me, this is important stuff, especially if you're involved in facilities management at all.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about total cost of ownership, or TCO for short.
And we've got some great research lined up that really digs into how understanding TCO can help you make smarter decisions.
Smarter decisions about, well, pretty much everything you need to keep a facility up and running.
We're talking big picture items,
Yeah.
the everyday stuff, you name it.
Because think about it. Have you ever really stopped to think about all the costs associated with something like, say, the air conditioning in a big office building?
Yeah, the HVAC system.
Right, the HVAC system. Most people, they just think about that initial price tag.
That sticker shock when you see the quote,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But there's so much more to it than that. You've got to consider everything that goes into keeping that system running smoothly.
Not just for a year or two, but for its entire lifespan.
That's what TCO is all about. Looking beyond that initial purchase price and factoring in every single expense. Every single one.
So give me an example. Let's break that down a bit. Like, with that HVAC system, what kinds of costs are we really talking about?
Well, for starters, you've got the installation.
Right, getting that massive system in place,
Then there's the regular maintenance.
keeping it clean, replacing filters, that sort of thing.
Then you've got to factor in those unexpected repairs that always seem to pop up.
And those can be budget busters if you're not prepared.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about energy consumption. HVAC systems can be real energy hogs.
So the cost of running it day in and day out really adds up.
It sure does. And even down the line, you've got to think about how you're going to dispose of that system responsibly when it finally reaches the end of its life.
Wow, when you lay it all out like that, it's pretty mind-boggling.
It is. And all of those costs spread out over the entire life of that HVAC system. That's what makes up the total cost of ownership.
Okay, so now we're starting to get a clearer picture of what goes into calculating TCO.
The what?
Yeah, the what. But now I'm curious about the why. Why is this so important for facilities managers or really anyone making decisions about big purchases?
It's not just about crunching numbers, right?
There's got to be more to it than that.
It's about making informed decisions, smart decisions that are going to benefit you in the long run.
So TCO is like a tool then?
Absolutely. It's a powerful tool that can help you answer those crucial questions. Like, should we repair this aging piece of equipment or just bite the bullet and replace it?
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or is this asset still giving us good value for the money we're pouring into it? Or even, what are our future capital needs going to look like down the road?
So it helps you plan for those big expenses.
Exactly. That's one of the major benefits of TCO. It allows facilities managers to forecast their capital needs.
So they're not caught off guard when a big replacement or upgrade is necessary.
Precisely. And it also helps them assess whether the assets they're managing are actually still providing value.
That's key, making sure you're getting the most bang for your buck.
Exactly. It's about maximizing the return on your investment over the entire life cycle of that asset.
That's really interesting, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. It's not just about the upfront costs, it's about the long game.
Exactly.
I'm starting to think about all those impulse purchases I've made where I didn't really think about the long-term costs.
We've all been there. But on a larger scale, like in facilities management, those oversights can have some pretty significant consequences.
Right, like way more than an impulse buy at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things facilities managers need to keep in mind to make sure they're using TCO effectively?
Well, one of the things our sources really emphasized was the importance of defining the scope of your TCO analysis.
Defining the scope.
Yeah.
Meaning,
It means being really clear about what costs you're including and, just as importantly, what costs you're leaving out, because you can easily go down a rabbit hole if you're not careful.
yeah, I can see that. It'd be easy to get lost in the weeds and start factoring in everything under the sun.
That's the thing. Some people go too narrow.
Okay, so they're just looking at a small sliver of the total costs.
Yeah, like maybe they just focus on maintenance costs and call it a day.
But that's not giving you the full picture.
Nope, not even close.
Yeah.
But then you have others who go overboard in the opposite direction.
Meaning?
They start throwing in all sorts of operational expenses that really don't belong in the TCO calculation.
Like what? Give me an example.
Sure, let's say you're trying to figure out the TCO of that HVAC system we talked about earlier. It wouldn't make sense to include the cost of office supplies for the facilities team.
I guess not. Those are definitely expenses, but
They're not directly related to the HVAC system's life cycle. You see what I mean?
yeah, I'm starting to get it. So the key is to be really specific about which costs are directly tied to that particular asset.
That's exactly right. Otherwise, you end up with these inaccurate comparisons.
And you might make decisions that don't make sense in the long run.
Precisely. And the research we're looking at, it highlighted how some organizations, especially in the education sector, have developed frameworks to help with this.
Okay, tell me more.
One example is APPA. They've got this life cycle cost analysis, or LCCA framework.
That's the Association of Physical Plant Administrators, right?
You got it. And their framework, it helps define the scope of TCO for educational facilities. It even breaks down those costs into super helpful categories like initial costs, operating costs, recurring costs.
Oh, that's super helpful, having a standardized way of categorizing those costs.
It's a game changer. Makes things so much clearer.
So it's like everyone's speaking the same language when they're talking about TCO.
Exactly. Everyone's on the same page. And speaking of being on the same page, our sources also talked about how TCO encourages different departments to work together.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about the numbers, it's about people, too.
Oh, yeah, big time. It's about collaboration. Because when you think about it, who's involved in managing assets within a facility? You've got the asset management team, the planning folks, the maintenance crew.
All working towards the same goal.
Right, but traditionally, they might operate in silos. But when everyone understands the concept of TCO and you have those standardized definitions in place.
It breaks down those barriers.
Exactly. And it leads to better communication, more effective decision-making. You've got everyone working together, sharing information.
So it's not just about crunching numbers in a spreadsheet. It's about building a more cohesive team.
100%. It's a communication strategy as much as it is a financial tool.
I like that. So we've talked about defining the scope of TCO, using it to make those big decisions, and how it can even improve collaboration. What else should our listeners keep in mind as they're, diving deeper into this topic?
Here's a key takeaway. TCO isn't static. The world's constantly changing.
Yeah, technology is evolving at a breakneck pace these days.
Exactly. New innovations are popping up all the time, and TCO, it helps you stay flexible.
It allows you to adapt and make adjustments along the way.
Absolutely. So it's not just about figuring out the TCO once and then forgetting about it. It's about constantly reevaluating, reassessing.
That makes total sense. I guess it's kind of like that old saying, penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, that's a good one. If you're just focused on the initial price tag, you might be setting yourself up for bigger problems down the road.
And missing out on opportunities to make smarter choices that save you money in the long haul.
Exactly. And that brings me to a question I want to leave our listeners with today. Think about a major purchase you've made recently, like a car or maybe a big appliance.
Something that's going to be with you for a while.
Yeah. Did you consider its total cost of ownership? Did you factor in all those additional expenses we talked about?
What things might surprise you if you really sat down and crunched the numbers?
Something to think about, right?
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive into total cost of ownership.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this has given you a solid foundation to build on.
And some food for thought as you make those important decisions.
Until next time.
See ya.
The Fresh Start Show have been sponsored by 911 Restoration, the Fresh Start Company.